let's see if we have Kevin in the studio. Let's bring him in. He's here. Fantastic. How you doing?
Yeah, this is wild. I just like joined a Zoom and I'm live with you guys.
We're live.
Yeah.
It's great to have you.
I
Welcome.
was I was watching you on X and thinking how weird it was that in 30 seconds I was going to be on the screen. This is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, we're
It's easy.
leveraging this thing. It's called the internet and technology. But we'd love to get you up to speed on it since.
It's funny. A funny story. So Tyler Cowen called into the show before one of your guys' earlier releases, and he was like, "AGI is here." Like he was basically saying, like it's a couple days out, but he couldn't get his camera working, and it was this like funny dichotomy of like AGI is here, but like the internet is still actually.
There was actually another day when we had to basically take the whole show down because Zoom and both Zoom and Google Hangouts just went completely down. Like nationwide. And so we were like, well, we can't do our show now, I guess. It's very rough.
The running joke is that audio video is like ASI complete.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, everything else in the world is solved.
Yeah, wait. So, I mean, I think long term for the show, we need to go proprietary. We need to build our own video streaming stack.
Yes.
Can you help with that?
Just
Codex.
quickly
Can Codex
well,
help
you know
with
what? You know what can help with that?
Yeah.
Codex can help with that.
Break it down. How would I use Codex?
And by the way, you get to talk about AI, and then you're going to have Blake from Boom here, so you get to talk about supersonic flight afterwards. You guys have the coolest lives ever.
It's full stack. Full stack technology.
But yeah, can you take us through the announcement? Break down exactly what launched, when it's available, to who, what you're excited about, and then we'll go into some of the trade-offs in the product design and development.
Yeah, let's do it. So we just launched this morning Codex, which is a cloud-based software engineering agent that can work on many tasks in parallel. So a lot of folks are used to the kind of cursor windsurf style, GitHub Copilot style of AI development, which is really more about augmenting a single engineer, right? You're writing code in your IDE and you can press tab, 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 and it'll autocomplete and you're, 10, 20, 40% faster.
Yep.
With Codex, you actually have a software agent that runs in the cloud that can do entire tasks for you. So you give it a task, it goes off and does it, and suddenly you have a PR and you didn't work on it at all. And it's powered by a version of O3 that we fine-tuned specifically to be really good at these kind of hard software tasks. We're super excited about it. It launched today inside ChatGPT. So you can use it if it's rolling out now to Pro, to Enterprise, to Teams. Well, it'll make its way to Plus in the coming weeks. But the cool thing is it's an agent, it's a software agent in the cloud. So, you're using it today from ChatGPT. You can imagine using it in the future from, your terminal, your IDE, all kinds of other places, and even, hooking it up via API to your bug queues and just having this software agent churn through every single bug that you have. For each one, look at the context of the bug, understand your code base, and then suggest proactively how you would fix that bug and give you a PR that you can review. So the world of software engineering is changing. We're super excited about it. It's a research preview. It's not perfect yet, but I think this is the future.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've already noticed that ChatGPT has been writing code for me for a while. It seems to be writing more and more code. I was telling Jordy about how I wanted to know the height of a desk in an image, and I knew how tall a person next to it was. And I thought that it would just use images in ChatGPT to kind of one-shot this or guess. But it wound up spinning up and looking at the individual pixels with a bunch of Python code. I think it wound up writing like 5,000 lines of code or 500 lines of code. And it got it really right, unsatisfactory because it was just an average size table. It was like literally the standard size, but it really knew it. But so I'm wondering like, is this something that will feel like a deep research project or deep research functionality where I click a button to say, hey, let's use Codex for this. I'm giving you the hint. Or is this something that can be automatically triggered just from a text interaction like images in ChatGPT?
Yeah. I mean, by the way, you never know if that desk was actually like 38.2 inches. So
yeah, it's worth it. It's
totally worth it.
Write the 500 lines of code.
Yeah, why not? It's too cheap to meter.
Actually, that's been one of the coolest thing about O3. O3, personally for me, has been a kind of feel the AGI sort of moment using that model, the things that it can do. Yeah. And a lot of it comes from the fact that it can use tools while it reasons.
Yeah.
So it's thinking, And in the process of thinking, it can do some web searches, and then it can take what it learned from a web search and write some code. And then after that code, it can do image analysis, and then it can write some more code and do another web search. And then finally, with all of that context, it will output the answer. It's like it's really been an unlock for a huge number of use cases. And that's the kind of thing that enables Codex here. Because you're right, ChatGPT has been able to write code for a while, right? You can just go to ChatGPT and type in like, here's write me code to sort this array of integers that I have. And it can give you the code and it's going to be great at it. The difference here is Codex is built to work on big, complex code bases. So you're not just saying like, do this little task for me, write this function. You're saying, I have a bug and I don't know where it is. There's a 100,000 line code base. Can you please go understand my code base and try and fix this bug? Or I'm a new engineer at a new job. I'm trying to understand what the heck is going on in this code base. Can you explain to me where the code does X or Y or Z? And very quickly, it'll look through the code and give you an explanation of how something works. It's funny. I've even seen examples where people go, "Hey, Codex, find a bug in this code base and fix it."
Just find one randomly.
So
just go.
Like,
That's
look
amazing.
through complex stuff and do hard work on a huge amount of existing context that differs from what you've been able to do in ChatGPT for a long time.
Yeah.
Wild.
From a personal perspective, I used to write Python pretty regularly. I haven't written much code, so I haven't really gotten into the Cursor or Windsurf world. Obviously, I've been writing code via ChatGPT now. I noticed recently I kicked off a deep research report and it prompted me to put it on effectively a cron job. It was like, do you want me to just run this for you every week? And I said, yeah, that sounds awesome. That's great. But if I'm like I don't have a repo, but I could set one up. Is there a world where me as kind of like a prosumer, non-technical user should set up a repo to house the custom code that Codex writes for me to make it a better experience for all the little custom software and tools and random stuff I use? Or should I just live in the O3 world where the code is pretty much ephemeral?
I think it depends what you're looking to do. For simple things where you just want to like quickly put together a script or something, writing it inside ChatGPT and not using version control and all of that is fine. But if you're going to do something, that you expect to be longer lived, like it's the basis for something you actually want to build for yourself and maintain, then I think setting up a quick GitHub repo and using Codex on it makes a ton of sense. By the way, I used to be an engineer.
Yeah.
I haven't, I still dabble and screw around on the side and write code, but nothing major. And I hadn't written any code at OpenAI. I've been there about a year, and haven't checked in a thing.
Yeah.
Like Tuesday night, I think, I was doing, the rest of my work, and I was like, I want to fix a couple bugs. And so I went and found a couple really basic bugs, because I didn't want to screw anything up. And sent Codex off to work on both of them in parallel. Checked back in a few minutes, and I had 2 PRs. They looked right, so I submitted them, got them code reviewed by somebody who's actually a good engineer, and they were submitted. And now I've got a couple commits in the code base. So it's like
this is stolen valor, though. This is stolen valor. You didn't write that code.
But it's
That's
cool.
awesome.
Like I actually just kept. Other than just like getting to play around with the product and offering a little bit of feedback on a couple things, I was off doing the rest of my work, and I had this software agent working for me in the cloud, writing code.
Yeah.
Kind of awesome.
Talk about. I'm so curious to hear about the kind of internal testing process and when you guys decided the right time to actually roll this out as a research preview, because I imagine you've been using Codex in one form or another internally for like a very long time. Maybe it didn't have a name or anything like that, but I'm sure that ChatGPT has been, contributing to effectively the ChatGPT code base, almost since the beginning in some form or another.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're big users of our own tools. There was a version for a while that was mostly about the kind of how do you come up to speed quickly in a big code base. that was good at understanding our code base and answering questions about it. That was really popular with new engineers on the team. And
Yeah.
then once you kind of, get to understand it, you might not use that tool as often unless you're exploring a new area of the code base. So that was like a proto version of this.
Yeah.
But we've been working a lot over the last 6 months at improving the ability of our models to code. Like you've got GPT 4.1, which we released a little while ago, which is kind of which has very quickly become a really popular model. It's now, I think, default in Windsurf. It's increasingly a large percentage of cursor users coding. And that came from focusing on the things that matter in creating a really good coding model that you can rely on. It means really good instruction following, longer context, the ability to like not just make the changes, but to make the changes the way a developer would. So don't add a bunch of extraneous stuff, don't add weird comments, make surgical, precise changes that accomplish the job. So there's a style element to writing good code, not just a correctness element. And we've been focusing on all of this. And then you kind of bring that together with O3 and all of the things that we were, that O3's ability to tool call and to reason and suddenly you can put together a really good coding model. So we've been thinking about this for a long time. This is the first time when we're like, okay, this is now good enough that we think it deserves being a product for the rest of the world, and we're excited to see how people use it.
Can you talk a
Makes
little
a lot
bit
of sense.
about product design, product like inspiration in product design? I noticed that the very first iOS app had these incredible haptics when the tokens were streaming through that I hadn't really seen anyone do. I just opened the app last night and saw that when you're using voice mode to dictate to it, it has a different modal now. It feels like there's a very strong design language evolving. At the same time, there was people complaining, oh, I'm using ChatGPT, I can't even stay logged in. That bug obviously got crushed pretty quickly. But what is the actual product design inspiration? Are there people that are pulling from certain schools of thought or anything, or like is there someone driving that internally, or is it just like baked into the culture?
Yeah, for sure. Ian Silber leads our design. I was fortunate to work with him at Instagram. He's an
Oh,
incredible
cool.
designer. It's building for ChatGPT is a really interesting thing because we have, well over 500 million weekly active users at this point. So it's a big scaled product.
Yeah.
And so for products of that size, one of the most important things is to simplify, right? You're not just serving power users at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're serving people that are just trying to get something done in their day. They don't care about the complexity. They don't care what the models are called. They just have a task and they want to complete it and you want to help them.
Mm-hmm.
But then on the other hand, we have folks who are super deep AI enthusiasts and want to, digest every single new model that we use and try it out in all these different ways. And so we want to both, and we want them to, we don't want to sort of soften the edges of their experience. We want them to be able to do everything they possibly can to experience all of, the power of AI. And so we both want to like simplify the experience for a lot of our users, and we want to provide the people that want it all of the bells and whistles. And so we try and balance that. So you try and make it so that you don't need to worry about things like the model picker as much. You don't need to like have a bunch of AI knowledge in the background to do what you want to do in OpenAI or in ChatGPT. But if you have that, you should be able to expose the sharp edges and like test the different new features and stuff. And so we really actually try and get both of those things right, and it's a delicate balance.
How do you?
Is that why you guys don't seem to put too much emphasis into perfectly naming products just because on a long enough time horizon it doesn't really matter. I just come to, ChatGPT and I work with it to get the outputs and the results that I want, and I'm not, regardless of my experience level, I don't necessarily care the underlying sort of models doing the actual work.
Wait, are you saying our naming isn't great?
I was alluding to.
No, to be clear, we think that you have the second worst naming after Behemoth, which is a very, very untamable, demon
monster.
And potentially a disaster. So we are now long 4-0 and 0-3, and we just decided the names
if
are
you
great.
look, only 6 months ago, a new model would get announced, and people are like, "Oh, it's so confusing," blah blah blah. And but it seemed to me, as an observer, that you guys, like, it wasn't like, "Oh, this is a problem and we need to fix it." It was just more so like, let's just keep making really great models and make them easier to access in really intuitive ways.
Yeah, I mean, in all seriousness, it comes from our focus. We have this principle of iterative deployment that we really believe in, which is that these models are new systems, right? They're each model has capabilities that we understand somewhat, and also we discover new things about it. And we believe that no matter how many smart people we have inside of our walls, there are way more smart people outside our walls. And the best thing we can do in a world of AI evolving so quickly is to kind of co-evolve with society, to ship stuff early and ship often and, learn together. And so one of the reasons that we have this explosion of models is we're trying to build new capabilities rapidly. And sometimes the easiest way to do that is to kind of build it into a new model that's really good at one specific thing or a handful of specific things, but can't do everything. And so you end up with this like profusion of models that do different things well. Like 4.1 is really good at coding and instruction following, but it's like not as chatty. And so if you're asking about other things, you might prefer 4.0 for some things and 4.1 for others. Seems totally natural. You'd go like, well, why don't you just build one that's, good at coding when you're coding and good at chatting when you're chatting? And we will do that. That's what we're trying to get to with GPT-5, where we're trying to bring more of these things together. But if we tried to do that from the beginning, we wouldn't have been able to launch as fast. And so we've opted for like launching fast, having a little bit of, confusion that comes with it, but we learn faster. And then over time, you sort of integrate and simplify.
I guess like
Totally.
the meta question though is like, is the future just, you're already using mixture of experts within the models. Is the future like a mixture of experts models? And so I go to there's one command line. Text is the universal interface, not drop down model pickers. And it routes me. It says, hey, this person doesn't want to chat. They want to write code. Okay, we're using 401. That seems kind of logical. And already this is kind of happening with the model picker becoming like, just the UI is getting less and less in your face, and it's a little bit easier just to have a natural interaction. But how do you see it evolving?
Yeah, I think over time, the capabilities that have existed for a little while, you sort of learn how to bring them into a general model.
Yeah.
But you're always going to have these new frontier capabilities.
Yeah.
That you're going to want to be able to iterate on really quickly, and you might want to do specialized things to make the model really great at some new frontier capability. And so I think, yes, ideally you have a sort of model, a layer above the models that's doing the choosing for you.
Yeah.
But that is, it's a hard problem, especially it goes back to the building for simplicity versus building to enable power users.
Sure.
As a power user, you might be the only one that knows for a particular question you're asking, whether you want a 80% good answer immediately, or you'll wait a minute for a 95% good answer. Or whether you want to do deep research and wait 20 minutes and get an amazing answer.
Yeah, I mean, you could theoretically like train the user on that a little bit,
well, it's
because there are
it's also like how you work
like,
with the comp that or like my personal framework is like when you're working with people on your team or teammates, there's certain people you'd work with that you would have to explain effectively like the exact tool set that they should use to accomplish the task. You should get the CRM and you should go in the CRM and do this and that. And then there's people that are maybe have greater intelligence or experience or context, and you just sort of like discuss the task with them, and you're not even thinking about the underlying sort of like toolkit to accomplish the task. It's just sort of this higher level, conversation.
I want to talk about A/B testing versus personalization. when you choose like a default model or the default prompts when you open up ChatGPT, it says create an image, write a Python script, make up a story, what's in the news. There's a couple options there. There's a lot of personalization going on, but you could also imagine doing A/B testing to understand what will drive churn down or retention up. How are you thinking about the balancing act between those two techniques of product development?
I don't think they're really at odds in any way. We do both.
Yeah.
So we definitely A/B test a lot of things because we're trying to learn what works and how we can help people understand this new kind of strange world of AI. It's a funny product, right? We're used to products where you have a UI, like computers before AI needed very specific inputs, like this button does this specific thing and that button does this other thing. And if you wanted to do a third thing and there wasn't a button for it, you probably just couldn't do that thing,
Yeah.
right? But then every time you hit the button, you got the same output. It was very consistent.
Yep.
LLMs are basically the opposite, right? You can give them input that has the full complexity and nuance of the human language, and you have no limits on what you ask. And then also what you get out is not the same from one thing to the next. It might be substantially the same, but the words are not identical, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a totally different way of building product. And when someone comes to ChatGPT for the first time, if they just hear from their friends, hey, this AI thing is super cool. It can do all this stuff for me. And they show up at the front door of ChatGPT, they're a new user. Like, what's the mental model? Because it flies in the face of almost everything that you've learned using computers over the last however long. So we really think a lot about how we get people going and how we teach them all of the different capabilities, which, by the way, the capabilities are changing every month or two too. So it's a really challenging problem, but something that we care a lot about because that's, if you go from being a novice ChatGPT user to being a power user, it can really change your life. It can save you a ton of time. It can accomplish a lot of tasks for you, and that's only increasing.
Yeah.
So the upside of us being able to teach people well is also increasing.
Yeah, I feel like a decade from now, people are going to look back at this moment and realize that the people that fully understood the capability, like the full capability set of the models, just had this ridiculous sort of extreme advantage.
It was the same thing with social media. Like the people that really understood and took social media seriously early on are like famous now, like actually famous. Interesting. What is your postmortem on the sycophancy thing? I feel like that made news because it was kind of blanketly like it was kind of like everyone was experiencing, or at least all the power users were experiencing it. But I could imagine a situation where some people really liked that type of interaction and it was beneficial and it actually made improve their lives. And so if you go to the YouTube algorithm right now and you only search and click on positive content that reassures you, you can have a sycophantic experience, and that can be good for everyone involved. So how do you, what is your postmortem on it, and how do you think that the personalization will play out in the future?
Yeah, this was a really important issue. I mean, the story for people who don't know, we rolled out a new version of GPT 4.0, which is something we do pretty regularly. We're always, to your point about A/B testing, we're testing new versions of GPT 4.0 that are incremental improvements over previous versions. So we rolled out a new one, and we'd A/B tested in the past, so the metrics looked good. It looked like a really solid model. Had some new stuff around personalization, and then as it got out there, we saw that a number of use cases, not like super widespread, but enough use cases where we saw the model sort of overly like just being some of it was like glazing, what people call glazing.
Glazegate.
Yeah, we call it that.
Yeah,
I think we use that term.
Yeah, but then there were other cases that were more serious,
Totally.
where someone had real problems,
Yeah.
and maybe they were having mental issues, and the model was sort of validating them in ways that didn't really comport with reality. And that's a real thing, and we took that super seriously. So we rolled the model back, And then basically have spent the last few weeks diving into where this is coming from and what we need to do to make sure it doesn't happen again. And we've tried to be super transparent about it. So, we tweeted as soon as we were rolling it back, and then immediately put out a post-mortem, like, within a day or so, and then put out a second after we had done a bunch of deep dives. And so we've gone through, we've like the team did some great work. We've got evals now that measure this. We understand a bunch of the root causes from where this came from. As always with these things, it's never just one thing. It's like a little bit of this combined with a little bit of that, and then this unexpected thing happened, and together they created something that wasn't up to the standards that we set for ourselves.
Yeah.
So
yeah, sorry. I just have an interesting realization with the product. So we've been hearing this request for feature on social media for a while of like, I wish I could just reset my algorithm, start fresh, because I feel like it's funneled me in some sort of echo chamber and I don't like that echo chamber and I want to start fresh. And I don't know if social media feeds actually have that feature. It might just be buried, but I've noticed that with the ChatGPT memories, early on, I was really aggressive about prompt engineering and basically like prompt hacking. And so to get the best responses, if I was trying to learn about trains, I would say like, I am a world expert in trains. I own multiple train lines and railroads. Give me a breakdown of the market map of trains. Basically lying to it. And then it remembered that. And so now it's like, well, as a train conductor, you'll probably want to eat this for dinner. And I'm like, okay, I have to back up. I wasn't being completely honest with you, ChatGPT. But the good news is that the saved memories are there and I can delete them all. Yeah. And so I can kind of reset my experience. But was that a learning from the demand that people are seeing and the not the stated preference on social media for resetting? Or do you think that that's important? Or what other lessons are you learning from how social media has played out? Because you obviously have a lot of experience there and a lot of people at the team have experience in social media.
Yeah, it's personalization is a really powerful thing that I think we're just at the very beginning of. Like I mean, in the same way that we know each other a little bit.
Yeah.
You have best friends that you know super well who you're really comfortable with, and then you have strangers, and your level of comfort in interacting with them is very different.
Yeah.
If you have a super assistant in your life in ChatGPT, you want it to know you really well. You want it to know your habits and how you like to do certain things, and even down to like, do you want more flowery, supportive language, or do you want crisp, analytical, terse language? Things like that. Mm-hmm. I was messing around last night with ChatGPT trying to give my son some math homework, and I just said, hey, can you design 10 math problems for Matthew? And the model knew Matthew was my son, knew he was 10 years old. Wow. And developed a bunch of like grade level appropriate escalating, and it was like, that was super cool. And it was like, oh, he likes Legos, and Kevin, you're a runner. And so a bunch of these of the questions were like Lego themed, and you're going on a run with your dad and this. And so like, okay, this is really cool.
It's truly making me emotional. It's like the coolest thing. As like a parent to be able to give your children like a truly bespoke magical experience is like almost priceless. Yeah. Even in the context of homework, like something like homework, right? Totally. And so to that and even knowing that like kids today, like all of our we've got 5 kids between the two of us, and knowing that they'll grow up only knowing the sort of world in which this kind of technology exists, where a parent can just like generate magic for them in like seconds is just unbelievable.
I mean, and think of the world. This thing designed 10 math problems. So I used O3. It designed 10 math problems for my 10-year-old that were escalating in difficulty across a range of different things. It could easily, if he was entering in the answers, could easily realize over time where, what concepts he understood and what concepts he didn't, and just become a personalized tutor for every single kid. And remember, I mean, this is free, right? We don't charge for ChatGPT. You can get a subscription, but you can also use it for free. Basically, you don't even need an account. You need an Android phone anywhere in the world for free, and you can, get this thing that's starting to be more and more of a personalized tutor. I think it's incredibly powerful.
Totally.
Every study I've ever seen says that when you pair, traditional learning with personalized tutoring, the it's like a standard deviations of improvement. So I'm with you. I think the future is going to be very different, and there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic about what the next generation is going to be able to do with AI.
I need to be
Love it.
more honest with ChatGPT.
How do you explain the rate of AI progress to, let's say, like a family member of yours that's not in tech?
That's a good question. I think the only way, honestly, because you can talk about it, but it's like you can't get fit by reading about going to the gym. Like
Yeah.
you have to use it.
Yeah.
And so I've been trying to get any of my family members who aren't using it, just try it. Start asking, for everything that you're doing, ask, why couldn't I use ChatGPT for this? And you start to realize that there are more things that you can say yes to there, and you can start using ChatGPT. And then, the more you use it, the more you realize the value, and off you go. It's really hard to explain in the abstract, right? People go, agents, I'm hearing so much about agents. What is it? And then you use deep research or you use Codex and you're like, oh, wow, that just saved me a ton of time or did something I couldn't have even done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the promise of the future. I think we're all going to be much more productive. We get to not focus as much on the doing of particular things. We get to focus on the outcomes and, what we do once some of the labor itself is taken care of. And that's a super exciting future for me.
Couple more. Talk to us about Health Bench.
Yeah, so a huge amount. I mean, people are increasingly using ChatGPT for health. I've done it any number of times. My son had a small surgery that was supposed to be, 99.9% innocuous, 0.1% bad. And we got the results back from the doctor before I could talk to the doctor, and they look scary. And It's full of a bunch of medical jargon that even as a, former scientist, I didn't understand. And I put it in ChatGPT and said, "This looks weird. What is this? Should I be worried?" And it said, "Oh, no, 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 don't worry, it's fine." And I was like, "Okay, explain it like I'm five." And it did. And I couldn't get a hold of the doctor for another 72 hours. That would have been
Crazy.
a bad 72 hours for me if I was sitting there like stressed out about my son, and ChatGPT gave me the peace of mind.
Yeah.
So we always try and say with anybody asks about anything medical, this isn't a substitute for actually seeing a doctor. ChatGPT is not a doctor, but here it is. Here's the understanding of what's going on there. And it's really valuable. For all of us, for me, it saved me 72 hours of anxiousness.
Stress. Yeah.
For somebody else who doesn't have access to a doctor, it might be a totally different thing. So, anyways, we care a lot about this. We want to make, if people are using ChatGPT for this, we want to make sure that the answers that it gives are really good answers. And so we're putting a lot of effort into improving ChatGPT's ability to act as or to answer medical questions. And the only way that you really know if you're doing it right is if you have a benchmark, right? You've got to have something to test against to show that you're getting better. And we figured if we'd done a lot of work to put this benchmark together, then others could benefit from it outside of us. And so we open sourced it.
Last question. Can you give us the 30 seconds on why you were excited to join Cisco's board of directors?
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, Cisco is an incredible company, like iconic Silicon Valley software and hardware company. We all use it every day in 100 different ways, and they're at this really interesting point because I think AI can transform their business, and they can either be transformed, like it can either happen to them, or they can get ahead of it and build some really amazing software and tools and become,
A
sort of
leader.
an even more powerful leader for the next generation. And I think that's not unique to Cisco. I think a lot of companies are at that turning point, but Cisco really realizes it. By the way, they're actually a launch partner today for us with Codex.
Oh, cool.
So they're one of our early partners. They're looking a lot at how AI can help them get more done, faster, more cheaply, et cetera. So it's just AI is going to really impact their business over the next 3 to 5 years, and I'm excited to be a part of that and hopefully help them navigate this transition gracefully.
Amazing.
We'll have like 5 more hours of questions, but we will let you go.
Let you go. We'll come up to SF
most
soon
questions
and
can be answered by ChatGPT, but there's certain questions you got to go to the source.
organic, farm to table.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Anyway.
thanks so much for having me on. It's good to see you guys. And
Yeah, great to see you, Kevin.
Talking about supersonic jets. I wish I could stay for that one.
Yeah. We'll talk to you soon.
Great to see you. Cheers.
See ya. Bye.